Welcome everyone to the weekly stash, where we talk about everything happening in the comic book world. And I am Steve McGauley, editor-in-chief of TMStash.com. With me, as always, Ed Garrett, Joseph Gagel, Nick Duran. How are we doing tonight?
Doing great.
Hey guys, what's up?
How's it going?
Well, it has been another fun week for comics in the movie theaters. We had Guardians for a second week. Some of us got to see it a second time. And like Nick, I unfortunately only got to see it once, but did well again in the box office. Made $45 million, the highest of any second week movie this year in the core box office summer. So good news for Guardians. But with that being said, they were second to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, who took number one in the box office, making $65 million. Now, both myself and Joe got to see the movie, and we have differing opinions on it. The critics in general seem to they crushed the movie in general, but Joe, why don't we start off with you? Why don't you tell us what you thought of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Well, I'm not going to totally crush it like the critics did, but I will say that if you're like me, if you're the 30-something and 40-something-year-old person who fell in love with the original franchise in the 90s, this is not for you because this film's not made for us. It's made for kids. And I'm not saying you can't enjoy it, but their target primarily is the younger audience. And there were a lot of kids in the theater that I went and saw it, and they all seemed to enjoy it quite a bit. There were just a lot of little elements of it that I didn't care for. I didn't care for the overall origin story, how they felt they had to tie April O'Neil into that story. And the other big thing is I felt like they tried to make the individualisticness of each turtle stand out more than the group dynamic of them. If you know what I mean, Stephen. I felt like they tried too hard to make these characters individual characters when they're actually part of a whole. And I just overall I didn't like the story too much, and it did have its fun moments, but it just fell a little bit short for me. But I wasn't expecting a whole lot, so.
I wasn't expecting a lot either, but knowing that it was a Viacom Nickelodeon movie going into it, kind of had to expect that you weren't going to get this Guardians of the Galaxy-like experience out of the movie. I think that was probably the hardest thing, was to go and see that movie knowing that Guardians was still in the box office, and Guardians is one of the better movies I've seen in a long time. And it was good. I liked it, and I agree partially with what you said, but a lot of the things I disagree with, because I thought it was good that they stayed true to the origin story for the most part. I thought it was kind of cool how they tied in April O'Neil into it. I mean, mainly they did that just because they had I can't think of her name now as the actress for April O'Neil. So. Who was it, Joe? I can't remember her name.
Oh,
Megan Fox.
I purposely blocked it out of my head because she ruined the Transformers. But nonetheless, I mean, I thought it was good because she was like basically the main human tie-in to the movie, so that was good. And I mean, it wasn't. I mean, you could see through. I mean, the movie was very transparent. You could see where the movie was going about 5 minutes in, when they introduced the company. So I mean, I knew exactly where it was going 5 minutes in, and kind of how it was going to end. But I thought it was cool to see a New Age Ninja Turtles with full-blown CG that was incredible. The animations and all the turtles were incredible. They did do a lot of the storytelling of who's Michelangelo, who's Leonardo, who's Donatello. So they kind of did that, but I think for a Nickelodeon movie that's kind of reintroducing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to a whole new audience, which essentially is the generation that grew up watching its kids, which I think was kind of the purpose. They figured they're late enough now that the people that grew up watching it, me and you, Joe, that are 20s, 30s, that have kids, could bring our kids to the movie theater and get them hooked on Ninja Turtles. And I think it fully did that, and it was enjoyable enough for me, even though I'm not a parent yet, but for people of our generation to do that, to reintroduce their kids to the movie. I thought it was good enough that I could sit through that movie and enjoy it. It wasn't great. I would recommend seeing Guardians tenfold over seeing that movie. But I like the fact that they stuck to the true origin of the movie, but kind of what the turtles are, but kind of put a new little interesting origin twist on it. Did you not like that origin twist that they kind of did with it?
I don't know. I thought it was. I didn't think it was very necessary. I'll go ahead and say I won't count them against it too much because you're just trying to make it fresh, I guess, or reintroduce something new to something that's already been established. So that wasn't so bad for me. I guess I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't hate it completely, but I just didn't. I didn't love it all that much.
Yeah, and I can see that for someone that grew up with it. I mean, it's not a new story. It's nothing you don't know if you hadn't followed the Turtles as a kid. So I could see where there's that disconnect for some people, but they have announced that they're doing it unofficially. It sounds like they're doing a second movie in June or July of 2016. So it looks like we will get a second movie, so maybe that will be somewhat of a more entertaining story for those of us that grew up watching Turtles, and less of a reboot of the franchise to get kids back into Ninja Turtles. Ed, you're laughing.
Well, I'm just trying to decide. Did you hate it, Joe, or really hate it? And really, would either of you recommend someone go see Guardians again or see Turtles once?
I would say go see Guardians again.
That was my. Yeah, you say Guardians again? Yeah, I would say see Guardians again too, because the only reason that I went and saw Turtles instead of seeing Guardians again was so that I could talk about it on this podcast.
and also, I would have enjoyed
podcast.
I would have enjoyed it just as much if I would have waited for it to be on video release.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely not something you need to rush out to the movie theaters to see. But I mean, if anybody grew up watching it, I'd say you need to see the movie.
And that's why I went to see it. I'm a fan, and I wanted to see it, so I could say without a shadow of a doubt, this is why I liked what I liked, this is what I didn't like, and the rest is history.
I watched the original one a couple months ago, and I don't see why you had to remake it. So I'm keeping my boycott strong.
I will tell you that Michael Bay didn't ruin the movie.
Just
In
like
fact, a lot of the aspects of Michael Bay and his action played well to the movie.
How many explosions in this movie?
Not much.
Not many, I don't think. I will say I liked it better than Turtles in Time, which is the one I won't watch anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
No, it wasn't bad. It wasn't full of explosions or anything like that. But the action scenes were cool, and the CG was amazing. I think that was probably the coolest part for me. It was just being able to see like a full CG, like really cool. What you always wanted to see the Ninja Turtles be, it would come to life. I think that was really fun.
I did think that was neat because you eliminate certain restrictions you have when you have people in suits, like they didn't, in the early films. It limits them to what they can do, and it really did allow them to do what a big giant turtle human would do.
Because it really did bring the characters to life. Like the characters were very, very lifelike. So that part was neat. So I mean, I have higher hopes for the second movie, even though Michael Bay in sequels is
Bad Boys 2.
But I mean, it could be. I mean, depending on who they have writing. And Michael Bay was really just kind of attached to it. Somebody else
Hmm.
directed it actually
Did you
under
catch
Michael Bay's name.
Did you catch Johnny Knoxville as Leonardo?
Yeah, yeah, that was fun. So I mean, there's fun elements, but I mean, it's not like a spectacular movie. But I mean, if you were into the Turtles ever in the past, I mean, you will get some enjoyment out of the movie. I think maybe not, maybe don't spend the money to see it at the box office, but I would
Do you,
definitely rent it and give it a watch and show it
do you
to you.
know if it, do you know if it follows the new reboot comic of Ninja Turtles at all?
I don't know.
Because it's different. The new comic is different, but I am enjoying it. I think they did it right. Eastman's writing it again, so he did it right. But it's definitely, he rebooted a different origin. But it's cool. So that's why I'm kind of curious about this origin you talk about.
Yeah, basically, spoiler alert, but I mean, basically, they're created in a lab, and April O'Neil saves them from the lab.
It is
The only
like the
reason they're
comic.
alive, and they're presumed they're.
Well, you forgot that part of what made them came from outer space.
Well, they didn't really say part of what made them came from outer space.
Well, I got the idea that a chemical or a component in the formula was extraterrestrial.
Yeah, I didn't get that at all from the movie. All I got was that they were trying to make a serum that would cure, that would basically be like an end-all cure to anything in the world, to where like they could cure, like the plague, like to where like they could cure Ebola, and they were trying to create this serum that could basically cure anything that they had injected into the turtles. And then the whole place burns down, and April O'Neil's father dies, and April O'Neil goes and saves the turtles and saves the turtles and the rat and throws them into the sewer. And then they grow up to be samurai.
So in the comics right now, the reboot, spoiler alert, it starts the same way, but Splinter and the Turtles actually existed in Japan hundreds of years ago and were murdered by Shredder or something around that, and they were reincarnated into these turtles, and then the mutant gen made them what they are. So then they became
They kind
more
of
self-aware.
insinuate a backstory of the main villain besides Shredder. The head of, what's the name of the corporation, Joe? I can't think of it now.
Sax.
Yeah, Sachs Corporation. Basically, the head of that Sachs Corporation goes and he grew up in Japan and was made a samurai by Shredder, essentially. Was trained by who is Shredder now, and he comes over to the U.S. and creates this big company because his parents had died. And in the process of creating this company, he creates this mutagen to try to basically save this plague that had once killed off a bunch of people in Japan. This ancient plague that killed off half of Japan. And that's why he was creating this mutagen, was to prevent that from happening in the future. So it's similar. It sounds like it's a similar storyline to those new comics.
Mm-hmm.
So
Still not going to see it.
So I mean, like I said, it's all right, but I'd check it out and rent it. We talked long enough about what is, a mediocre movie. But on top of that, we had a lot of news coming out of Marvel, and DC for that matter. Ed, what happened in DC this week?
Well, you can catch a lot of DC Comics information by checking out a new DC report that we've got up on the site right now. The biggest thing that I'll come back to, there's more detail on that report, is just the Doomed storyline, which has turned into the best New 52 storyline for Superman, really since the New 52 started. It's really hitting a highlight right now. They've managed to throw the kitchen sink. They've either set themselves up for a spectacular finale, or they've written themselves into a box that they will never get out of in their lifetime. Because they've pulled in everything from a planet-sized mothership to releasing some very interesting people from the Phantom Zone. But it's turned out really to be a great storyline. There were 3 issues out this past week. The Superman Wonder Woman annual, the Action annual, and Action 34, and then Superman Wonder Woman, their regular issue comes out this week, so I would definitely grab it. We were talking a little bit before the podcast here about sort of the differences between that and the high expectations that were out there for Jeff Johns and John Romita Jr. coming in on Superman. And honestly, the Doom storyline to me seems a whole lot better. I think, Nick, you were sort of feeling the same way about that.
I think so. I think they made a big deal at the back of all the books they were advertising. Jeff Johns is coming back, giving you a 3-page sneak peek. And so they were hyping it up, and I just think it kind of fell a little flat of what expectations were. And I think this Doom storyline is just awesome. It's big.
Oh, yeah. It really is. And the thing is, Jeff Johns, of course, I mean, he's well earned his reputation. The way he revived Barry Allen, the way he revived the Green Lanterns franchise, what he did for Aquaman, great stuff. But when he took on Big Blue, it's not that it's bad stories. It's just not what you would expect from a Jeff Johns book.
Yeah,
so,
I shouldn't say anything about Jeff Johns. He's great.
Yeah.
But this series just isn't what I was. I was hoping for it to be safe because it was not doing very well before Jeff Johns too.
Right. And that's the thing. By the way, I think we've lost our buddies here. I think it's just you for a couple of minutes. So hopefully everything is still recording and we're going to be okay.
I'm here, but I've noticed some bandwidth issues, so I dropped off my video.
I gotcha.
Pick up.
Gotcha.
And we did lose Joe. So
yeah, we did. Okay.
It would be a common occurrence with Joe, unfortunately.
But like, and I'm like Nick, Jeff's a great writer, and it's just, I don't know. I would much rather read what Greg Pak and Charles Soule are doing with Doomed.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
So these guys have been doing a great job to begin with. Charles Soule's all over the place, and Greg Pak is Action Comics have been just great.
Yeah.
So, and I'm glad they came together and they brought us a great story arc.
This is one where it started out. Oh, we're getting Joe back now. I think we're getting some folks back together here. It's one of those where everybody's expectations for the storyline were met in the first issue because everybody thought it would be a big battle between Superman and Doomsday, and Superman would eventually beat Doomsday, and that happened in the first issue. It's been a huge twist ever since, and I'm glad to see some resolution this past week with Lois Lane's situation. I've been calling her Laniac because of her mixture in with Laniac.
That's great.
And it was a little, I was like, okay, can we get back to Lois Lane being Lois Lane? And we're getting closer to that point right now. So that's good, and the rest of the storyline is just awesome.
I feel like if this was live TV, we would have some pop up that said #Laniac right when you said that. So, yeah, I think this series has been great, and I think it's been really a struggle of Clark Kent in that power that he has, and that's always been an issue. Is he has this power? What if he turns against us? And this is, well, what happens if he can't control that power? And it's the inner demons, and it's also great to watch both the ladies in his life.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how far Wonder Woman's willing to go to protect the world, even from Super Doom, even if that's someone she's in love with.
So without going on too much of a tangent, do you think that we're gonna this Wonder Woman Superman thing's gonna last for a while, or do you think they're gonna go back to the traditional Lois Lane Superman love affair?
I think they're going to stick with this for a little bit longer, simply because it is selling, and
money.
And Charles Soule really has a great handle on both lead characters. I like them in this book better than I like them in their own single titles with Superman or Wonder Woman. And it's just, I think they'll go a little bit. I can't see them going back soon. I think eventually they'll have to, but I don't see it happening real soon.
Yeah, I actually like this twist, and that's what I like about the New 52 is we're seeing stuff, especially with the characters that have been around for over 75 years now, that they're able to kind of mix it up and, well, what if?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm an old Lois and Clark fan, and so it's really weird for me to be talking about really enjoying the Superman-Wonder Woman relationship, but it works. At least the way Charles Soule is writing it, it works.
Mm-hmm. And I like that they made their own issue for that instead of invading each other's comics, because Brian Azzarello has been doing an amazing 3-year arc on Wonder Woman. Like, this isn't just multiple story arcs. He's been running one story arc for 3 years, and it's been awesome.
I've been okay with his work on it. I know I'm in a minority here. I really do. I realize most comics readers are big fans of that art, but I like how her character shows up in Superman Wonder Woman better.
Well, she's more of the, it's not as get away from the mythology of everything, all the Greek mythology that they're doing in the, so I think Wonder Woman series stands alone as its own thing, and then you have Wonder Woman and all the other relationships like Justice League and Superman. So it's kind of two different Wonder Womans.
Oh, yeah. And then the rest of DC can catch the DC Report. We've got a lot going on there.
What do we call it? It's Ed's DC Corner.
There we go. I'll get my title right soon. I've called it about everything else, but yeah, DC Corner, it'll be there.
Yeah, Ed's DC Corner is on the YouTube channel, and we will be creating the RSS feed so everyone can subscribe to the favorite RSS reader or RSS feed / podcast catcher. So we will have those up tonight sometime. Cross your fingers if I have enough time to get this all set up. So with that being said, Marvel. You had a lot of stuff in Marvel, Joe. And while we have you, we should get to you because your internet connection seems to be spotty at best tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to try to blow through this pretty quickly. I'm going to start off with Superior Spider-Man number 32. He's back for 2 issues. Now this is what's going to be called the Edge of Spider-Verse. It's a lot of stuff that's going to be building up to the big Spider-Man event coming out this fall. Now this really centers on a story arc that took place in the middle of the Superior run, where he's kind of blinks out of our timeline for a day or two, and this kind of covers what he's been doing in that during that time, and he's basically trying to get back, and he stumbles upon several other realities where he finds dead Spider-Man, and he does run into the guy that's been killing them, so I want to say it's going to be the Moreland character that's going to be the main villain for this Spider-Verse. So he starts collecting Spider-Man and says, we're going to get this guy, but we're going to have to do it together. So he's been gathering a small army of Spider-Man, and that's going to lead into the next issue whenever that is, and so that should be a really good build for that going into Spider-Verse. Also in the Spider-Man world, we had a new issue of Miles Morales, the Ultimate Spider-Man, and this really was a really good issue because he comes face to face with the guy who killed Peter Parker in the Ultimate Universe, Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, which in the Ultimate Universe is more of a creature than a costumed villain. And not only does he fight him, but he fights him in the same place that he killed Peter Parker. You've got the news feed on this, and everyone who knows Peter and this new Spider-Man is watching with great fear and anticipation. And in the last few pages, it gets even wilder when Peter Parker shows up, because he's shown up in the last issue or so, and only reveal himself to the new Spider-Man. But he shows up in this battle, and it just floors everyone in his life because they're watching this on TV, and especially like Mary Jane and Aunt May, they see this and they cannot believe that Parker is back. But I still think it's a clone. So we're going to have to wait and see because I smell clones in Spider-Man all the time. And my other two little notes, Punisher and Black Widow number 9 each had their number 9th issue with a really neat little crossover. They were kind of going in their own directions, but kind of in the middle of each issue, both characters' paths crossed, and I thought that was kind of a neat thing because it really didn't depend on either story, but it was just a neat little crossover, and the title was called Friend or Foe, and it kind of fit the story that was being told. Nick, didn't you read that one, I think?
I liked it. I think it was, I think if you were looking for big Punisher, Black Widow interactions, it might have fallen short a little bit, but I think it was good for, as you were saying, they went their own directions, but they kind of crossed paths. It was cool.
Yeah, I really thought it was a neat like little crossover thing, and I liked it. And the last thing I want to touch on, it was the latest issue of Moon Knight. I think it was number 6. And this has been a really neat series that Marvel's kind of brought back to the forefront. It's had a lot of good writing and artwork. But in this one, there's this guy who wants to become Moon Knight. And he feels the way to do that is to become the Black Spectre, which is an old villain of his. And he wants to do it because he wants people to love him. But Moon Knight really, beats him down. And before he's done with him, he tells him, well, the problem is I don't want anybody to love me, and that's why it works. You want people to adore and love you, so that's why it's not working for you. But it was just a really well-written book and probably the best of the series so far. And that's all I got from this week for you, Steven.
Awesome. Ed, what do we have to look forward to? DC World.
Well, from DC, Batgirl 34 is the last Gail Simone Batgirl this week. Batman 34 is out. Birds of Prey has their last issue. Justice League United ends their first story arc. Batman Eternal is out. Superman Wonder Woman. And then we got a long list where it hits on the indies. Dynamite has Red Sonja number 11 coming out. Dark Horse has Blackout number 4 coming out. Star Wars number 20, the end of their series. Valiant has Armor Hunters, Unity, and Archer and Armstrong. And I've got sort of a sneak peek at some of those, and those are all worth grabbing. Image has Sex Criminals number 7, Walking Dead 130 coming out, along with Ghosted, which is a favorite of mine, and Starlight. And then there's some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles coming out of IDW this week. Boom has Next Testament number 12 from Clyde Barker and Thomas Alsop number 3. Then our buddies at Action Lab have a couple of premieres. The First Hero number 1 and Midnight Tiger number 1, along with Skyward number 8. And those are just excellent ones. Oh, and also Southern Dog number 1 coming out from their Danger Zone imprint. Awesome. And Nick, I think you were looking forward to a couple of those.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Sex Criminals has been amazing, and I think I should probably check my facts here. I think Doberman's coming out this week too, right?
You're right. Issue number 2 is coming out this week.
Those are by the Always Sunny guys, and I don't think they've done comics before. I think this is new, and they're cracking me up. It's good stuff. They're pretty funny. It's over the top, cheesy jokes, but check it out. It's fun.
Cool. Any other books you guys are looking forward to this week?
Joe, what have you got coming up?
Okay, I'm going to try to go through this, a pretty lengthy list here, but for Original Sin, it continues in the 7th out of the 8th title. It's starting to wind down. We have tie-ins with the Fantastic Four, Amazing Spider-Man, and Deadpool. For Spider-Man fans, we have the number 2 issue of 2099, number 1, or number 2, I mean. Nova Special number 1, the No End in Sight Part 3 concludes. New Captain America, so we get to see where he's been going without his powers. Inhuman number 3, Thunderbolts number 29, where they're up against the Punisher as this series comes to a close. And for fans of the X-Men, it should be a big week with X-Men number 18, Amazing X-Men number 10, All New X-Men number 30, Wolverine with 1 month to live, and Wolverine and the X-Men number 7.
That was quick.
That was impressive.
Nick,
There you
anything
go.
else you're looking forward to this week?
I think they named everything. We all read the same stuff. I don't think I heard Future's End. That's weekly, so it's a given, but I've been getting into that. But again, that comes to me liking Brian Azzarello a little more than Ed.
I got
And
the
then,
that's my main book this week.
what's that?
Yeah.
Walking Dead.
That's going to be good. I think they kind of left you with a, whoa, this direction's a little different than you thought it was going to go last 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a different tone, a different place, so
Well,
we'll
the big
see. It's kind of interesting. We're in like that lull. It seemed like around there was a similar point earlier in the comic book series, probably over 100 comics ago, that it kind of hit like this lull where you kind of felt like they're okay, or so they're kind of in that same place. So I don't know if they're just gearing up for something big, or
Well, I think the two big things were they have those weird strangers rolling around in the compound who are getting into no good, and we saw at the very end. I don't really want to give a lot away, but then also Rick's explosion on one of the guards was whoa. Kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like the direction they're making Rick just a lot darker, and that's hard to do.
it may not last. We'll see. You never know with The Walking Dead. That's one of those books you never know where it's going. Same
Kirkman's
thing
the
with
best.
the TV show. All right. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for the weekly stash. As always, if you need to catch up more news, go to tmstash.com and catch up with all our full reviews and all our previews for everything coming out. And catch up. Go ahead and subscribe. We'll get the audio feeds up here for iTunes and your favorite podcast application. So go ahead and subscribe to our feed there, and we will have all of our future podcasts and a few of our previous ones up there available for you to take on the go. So you don't have to keep watching us on YouTube. But that's about it for this week. Have a great night. Keep reading the stash.